Hello and welcome back to Ycft. We're finally doing it. We're finally ending. We literally started our Friday the 13th series in 2021. It was our second video.
Yeah.
Where we go through, we're splitting the 12 films into story arcs. So you have the original 4 of Human Jason, the next 4, Zombie Jason, up to the end of the Paramount Era. Now we're going to take a look at the final 4 films to date.
The New Line Era.
And kind of like to why we only have 12. We touched on the lawsuits before, but this is like the New Line cinema era. And whereas the others, they have a very steady story you can kind of follow. These do not.
No.
And it gets kind of weird to varying results. New Line Cinema have the rights to Jason.
Uh-huh.
Interesting. Paramount still own the rights to Friday the 13th, though. New Line only negotiated Jason. So that's why the first ones, we're going over Jason Goes to Hell, the final Friday. They couldn't call it Friday the 13th. We're going to look at Jason X. Cannot call it Friday the 13th. And it's the same with Freddy Vs Jason.
Mm-hmm.
The final one, they finally made, with Platinum Dunes, they made a deal between both. And we got Friday the 13th, the reboot in 2009. So we're going to take a look at all 4 of these. They have so little connection between each other.
But they're fun to talk about.
They're so different. Whereas all the others, they kind of flow nice into these.
Yeah, these
out
couldn't
there.
be more different from each other if they tried.
It's also the 30-year anniversary of the first one we're going to talk about, 1993's Jason Goes to Hell.
Oh yeah, 30 years.
Which, Kane Hodder returns as the role of Jason. Who's the director of this one?
It's a guy called Adam Marcus. And I think this was his first feature.
He sold a screenplay to Disney very early on, but they didn't want to trust this directing to a brand new director. So somehow he got his hands on it. I think most of the crew were in their early 20s.
Yeah.
I believe this one and Jason Takes Manhattan is often regarded as the 2 worst.
I feel like most videos I've seen of other reviewers, this consistently ranks the lowest. This is consistently.
I debate myself whether this is the worst or Manhattan is the worst, because Jason is only in this film for about 10 minutes.
I'm not going to lie. I'm going to save this. I'm going to refrain from going too far into it because we do plan on doing a ranking video separately of some sorts, some kind. Jason Goes to Hell is not my least favourite. I'm going to say that right now. It's not my least favourite. It doesn't rank bottom for me.
Really strongly.
It's really strong.
I like Jason's look in this one. They basically wanted to completely almost ignore, not reference anything that happens in Jason Takes Manhattan.
Yeah.
So, toxic waste child Jason.
Just forget it. It goes out the window. It's not mentioned.
Maybe he just
thing.
grew back up again, but the skin is almost formed around the mask. It looks really cool. Kane Hodder said it was one of the most uncomfortable things because he couldn't take the mask off in between takes.
But I do like the opening to this.
Yeah, it's basically it's a military attempt to destroy Jason. And
him, yeah.
That's it. It opens really strongly. So we have a female camper who's having showers, all
lady.
The usual Friday stuff. And it's chased down by Jason and basically led into a trap. And it's amazing.
Yeah, she leads him to a SWAT team.
He's getting blown up and they destroy Jason.
Yeah. The important thing here is Jason is not a myth. He is He's a well-known threat, basically. They've had to bring in the frickin' army to deal with this guy. So yeah, the first 10 minutes is pretty I don't know, it was something different.
Yeah. This is when it becomes a bit of a body swap film. Jason's destroyed. The mortician suddenly has the urge to eat his heart. Jason passes into him. But Jason is too evil, so he can only stay in the same body for so long. Only through a Voorhees he can be destroyed, or a Voorhees he can be reborn. So he's looking for a blood relative. So they've introduced a sister of Jason.
Okay.
It's dumb. It's just
dumb. It absolutely is dumb. It's right, yeah.
I would say I appreciate they tried something different.
It's
bold, and there's some. The gore in this is incredible. They did rating for the MPAA and an unrated edition. That's what we watched. The unrated edition has some of my favourite gory moments in the franchise. Doesn't mean I enjoyed the film though.
No. I know. It's this was, I think, my first time watching this film. I think I'd put it off for a long time because I'd always heard that, this was the shittest one of the entire franchise. But yeah, There are some really fucking dumb plot points in it. They did try and do something different, but at the end of the day, this is the 9th film in a franchise, and they're messing with the mythology of Jason. We've dabbled with the supernatural in this franchise before, but this really does take it to a whole new, bizarre level. Yeah, like Jason's soul transfers into different people, like evil needing a host, basically.
Yeah.
Which we've seen quite recently in another franchise.
It's like, this could have been a really good and interesting film without Friday the 13th attached to it.
Attached to it, that's the thing. It just comes too late into, you know... Friday the 13th has always worked to a very simple, basic formula, and by the time this one came along, they've tried to do something really different. It doesn't quite work, and similarly to Halloween, they try and establish a familial connection. Like Jason all of a sudden has a sister,
but it's like,
and
would
the sister
Pamela have
has
reacted the way she did if she had another child?
Exactly. It's like, I don't buy it. I don't buy that there's just another Voorhees out there.
Weird link, because I know the director, he really wanted to make Jason a Deadite. Basically, he had this idea that Jason came back to life because Pamela read from the Book of the Dead, the Necronomicon, and brought Jason back. And similarly, that's what Jason was going to do to her. Basically, he knew he could never do it because New Line doesn't own Evil Dead. So he had to put it down to references. But there was a sequence where the main character actually just looked through the Necronomicon, and a knife that is used to fight Jason is basically the Kandorian dagger.
Yeah.
But it's a crossover that could have been really interesting, but then it's also you're messing with the mythology. Yeah. Apparently Sam Raimi was really interested in it. He actually thought it was a good idea. But it could never get off the ground because they said they don't own Evil Dead.
They don't own Evil Dead. So, yeah, like basically this kind of exists in Adam Marcus's headcanon. Jason is a Deadite. They basically tried to hint as much throughout this film as they could without overtly kind of crossing into Evil Dead territory. But I think you were researching it as we were watching it, and you said that to me whilst we were watching the movie, like, oh, there's an Evil Dead connection sort of thing. And I don't know if that maybe added to my enjoyment of the film, but when you start talking about that, the film made a bit more sense to me.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, if the film was made with that connection in mind, this makes a little bit more sense. So I actually quite like that.
But then it's like, so Jason was resurrected by his mother using the Book of the Dead, but that would have had to have been before the events of the first film.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's how Jason was alive.
No.
It doesn't make any sense. Because Jason is human in the first 4 films.
Friday the 13th doesn't really make a ton of sense the best of times. Like, we've spoken about, continuity errors and, like, what year is it meant to be, like, in part 3. Like, there's lots of errors. But, for me personally, the film became a little bit more interesting with the knowledge that, Jason could be a Deadite, maybe. And, there is that connection to the other franchise.
The creative director of Gun Media, who made Friday the 13th the game, actually got to correct a mistake done in this film. With Jason in this film, his lazy eyes on the wrong eye.
Yeah.
They said, main thing, they took the chance to correct that, but also they got the chance, because you've never seen him without his mask on in this. So, and part of the game, to defeat Jason, you have to knock his mask off, so all of the Jasons can lose their mask. So they have to design what his face would look like underneath that mask, and they said that was a great honour to essentially add to the continuity of what he might have looked like.
Yeah.
So I thought, I did think that
cool.
was really cool. One character I really like and one character I think is really fucking stupid.
Yes.
Duke, is that his name?
Creighton Duke.
I
was also just going to bring up Mr.
Bounty
Creighton
hunter, who extraordinary, who was all about Jason because he had an... Well, we found out since, we know the backstory because of interviews with the director, is that he had an encounter with Jason in a boat, he was pushed over, his girlfriend was drowned, and he spent the rest of his life as a bounty hunter trying to hunt down Jason. Jason is not that hard to find.
Well, Jason is not that hard to find.
He's basically he's just here to tell us the plot.
Basically,
and he's not from it. But Jason's sister has a daughter. And her baby daddy, obviously they're not together, is basically the main hero. He's kind of like Tommy Jarvis. They wanted to use Tommy Jarvis as a character, but they didn't have the rights to him. They only had the rights to Jason. So, and I actually think what's his name, that character?
Oh, I think it's Mike.
I think. He is, who interestingly, starred in the TV series.
Oh, no, it's Stephen.
He stars in the Friday the 13th TV series. But also the guy who originally played grown-up Tommy Jarvis went on to be in an episode of it as well after he started. But he, to me, is more of a Tommy Jarvis character than any other Tommy Jarvis. He is more of an actual threat to Jason.
Stephen actually kind of worked for me.
He was actually my favourite part of the film.
Stephen did. We got a bit of comedy from him as well. And that's something I want to talk about a bit more, is that the comedy in this film was, it was welcome for me. Like, there's a couple of funny characters. Like, there were some of, like, I did genuinely chuckle at some of the lines. But yeah, back to Duke, Creighton Duke. So yeah, he is a bounty hunter. By the way, he's played by Stephen Williams, and Stephen Williams plays X in the X-Files. And I absolutely, like, I love that character in that show, and I really like the actor.
We haven't been formally introduced. My name is Creighton Duke.
What the hell do you think you're doing? Grabbing my baby and bringing her here?
Hold it.
But both actor and character in this are really, really criminally underused.
He's kind of like the bounty hunter character in Jeepers Creepers 3.
Well, there's a really... Yeah.
It's the same character.
Yeah, it's like... We only realise, but as David was saying, like, by watching behind the scenes, that there's a backstory between Creighton and Jason.
All we needed was a flashback.
All we needed was a simple flashback.
But in the end, he isn't a threat to Jason at all.
He's set up in the beginning to kind of be... his nemesis, like the new Tommy Jarvis, like someone that's got a personal vendetta out to get Jason. Someone who just apparently also knows everything about the familial connection and knows how to defeat Jason. Like, he just miraculously knows all the answers.
He won't stop coming for you until he gets you, until he's reborn. And then he will kill you. And your baby.
But it's defeated incredibly easy.
We get a really fucking shit showdown between him and Jason. Like, I think, does Jason break his back or something like that?
I know.
There's hardly any scenes between them.
There's not a lot of scenes with Jason.
No. Oh,
because when Jason is resurrected,
it
was like the weird way he's resurrected, like exactly the same as how he looked before. Doesn't make sense. His sister's daughter. I forget all the character names in this because some of them are so unmemorable.
Jessica.
I don't really want to call her a final girl.
Oh no, she's bad. Like, she's shit.
Not even just like, I think she's doing the best of what she's got. But the amount of interactions with the story she actually has, like, I think it's more her ex-partner's story than hers. Like, he's the driving force of trying to save her.
Yeah.
She's more of just a hindrance. He actively walks into peril. And she basically doesn't have a showdown with Jason. No,
she doesn't. It is kind of Stephen's film. It's like final boy, I suppose. Yeah. But there's a line that really, really stood out to me. Creighton Duke, he's been interviewed by this like television, a journalist of some kind, and he's saying like he will hunt down Jason and he will kill Jason for about 500k, and the line he says is like, for that you get the mask, the machete, the whole damn thing. That line is taken directly from Jaws. Quint says the exact same thing, except his line is, for that you get the head, the tail, the whole damn thing, or the whole damn fish, or something. It's such an explicit Jaws reference, and I don't know if Adam Marcus or the writers were trying to establish and set up Creighton Duke to be like, I don't know, the Quint of the Friday the 13th series, but oh my god, it was so bad. Quint gets such a great showdown with the shark at the end of Jaws. Yeah. Duke, like... It was disappointing. It was really disappointing because I love that actor, but yeah, just really underused.
Yeah, one of the best kills. There's one kill that's definitely a reference to Hellraiser. After Jason leaves the body, he just kind of like deteriorates.
Oh, like body horror in this is very Hellraiser-esque.
But one of the best kills was actually a pickup shot because it needed more. It was missing something. It was the campers. Again, the problem is that all these kills are happening with people that Jason possessed. There's one cool shot where we see in the reflection, it looks like Jason.
Yeah.
But it's just... I think that's why people put Manhattan above it, is because Jason is actually in the film.
Yeah. I understand that.
There's two campers, and...
Well, there's three initially.
But two of them used to be a couple before filming this. And they said it was incredibly awkward.
Oh my god.
But also meant that the scene feels quite natural because they know how to have sex with each other.
I think they were both of the actors were actually nude, like they were fully nude with each other. And again, because they used to date in real life, so even though they were no longer technically together, I think it was just they didn't really have any like shame of being naked in front of one another at the same time. And I gotta say, as far as kills go,
it's one of the best in the series.
it
by
actually
far.
is. And interestingly, that this whole scene, when we were watching it, I said to you that this feels a bit out of place. Like, it just feels like it's randomly plopped into the film. And it's because it was a reshoot, wasn't it? Like, test audiences.
They needed a bit more happening.
So that does make sense. But
it's like machete through her back, and then
she's
up.
She's on top of him. They're going for it. They're nearly there. They're so close. They're not using a condom.
That's what does it, yeah.
And there's a scene where
the ratings board loved that.
they did because they
loved it.
thought it was a commentary on, like, one critic called Jason Goes to Hell a return to morals.
Yeah.
Or something like that. Even though it features, like, people being, like, you know, killed left, right, and centre.
It's because, like, he says he's like, oh, I hate those things, so she just throws it out the tent.
She throws it out, and then I think it's still the coroner who's possessed by Jason. He stomps over the condom. And yeah, so she's on top of him. They're proper going for it. And then machete through her belly, and then it's, like, dragged up. So she's, like, split in half, essentially. And it looks so good. His kill is off screen, but I don't know what initially
he
they were
got
going
head
to do to
stamped,
him.
but they did film something for it.
Yeah, but it got caught ultimately. But it's a really cool kill.
Yeah, again, not hovering on this film for too long. The ending is pretty cool when he actually just... I know they planned when he actually just get dragged down to hell. I know we've seen, like, behind-the-scenes images of, like, what they wanted the scene to look like, but I think budget reasons, they just couldn't do it. So it is still pretty cool. It
is still cool, and, like, I love the diner sequences. I don't know the name of the character, but the woman that runs the diner, she's like
she has,
this
like, elbow in the chin, just like collapses in.
Yeah, because she's a very mouthy character. Like, she's this big buxom woman that owns the diner, and her partner is like this, like, little timid guy. And just as, like, a couple, it's just right away.
She almost feels like a reference to Ethel from Part 5.
Yeah, a little bit. And I don't know, she's got some fun lines, like, you know, when Jessica and Stephen, or I think Jessica brings baby Stephanie to the diner, because, by the way, Stephanie's in peril throughout the whole film. Jason needs to kill the baby. This woman's like, we're running a creche, not a fucking nursery. Or something like that. No, we're running a diner, like, not a fucking creche or something like that. It's just the way she delivers it is really fun. And then she does, like, a complete U-turn. She actually really likes the baby in the end. So when Stephen turns up and she's like, no one's going to touch that fucking ray of sunshine, or something like that. I actually quite like the comedy in this. It works for me.
I feel like it's a lot of, like, because I don't think the characters were given much direction, so they just kind of had fun with it. And there is an element of fun. It's very okay. I think I am more likely to watch it over Jason Takes Manhattan, because that film just annoys me a lot.
Gotta be honest, I think I am too. The question that remains is, like, whilst this is by no means a good film, it's never going to be anyone's favourite, is this more exciting than Jason Takes Manhattan?
There's no boats in it.
And I feel like it is a bit more exciting, and again, I like the comedy in it.
I appreciate the difference.
I appreciate the difference too.
Well, obviously the ending, Jason's been dragged down to hell, it's just his hockey masks left. Freddy fucking Krueger's glove comes up, drags down, you hear the laugh. This was the announcement to the world that Freddy vs. Jason was going to happen. It was Kane Hodder's hand, actually. He was wearing a glove. Yeah. So extremely excited. Little do people know it would take us 10 years to get to this point.
Well, interestingly as well, Sean S. Cunningham, producer Friday the 13th, he wanted to make a Freddy vs. Jason film for a long time. And
they couldn't get Paramount and New Line to work together.
Ideally, this would have been Freddy vs. Jason. We would have had it early in the 90s. But they couldn't do it.
When Friday the 13th was at its low point, New Line and Nightmare on Elm Street was at its height, so they had no reason to work together. Yeah. But this was kind of like the announcement. It's going to happen. So this film didn't do that well.
I don't have budget and box office for this.
It didn't do that well.
No, it didn't.
It did okay.
Poorly received. People, I feel like there was a lot of backlash because of how different it was.
Sean S. Cunningham also, apparently, this is what the director said, find a way to get rid of that damn hockey mask. Sean S. Cunningham denies this.
Just quickly, because I know, again, don't want to dwell too much on it, but Adam Marcus said that there's a very fucking random scene in the film where a male character is stripped naked and tied to a, snooker table or a table or something?
This table isn't explained because it's got, like, you know, the legs are straight, like, the leg supports for if you're about to give birth. Yeah. That was there before all this. So what... Is that where Jason was born?
I don't know. We don't know. But the coroner, who's still possessed at this point, he's going to transfer Jason's soul that when it expels from a body. It takes the form of a weird fucking snake, and then it goes down the other person's throat. It's weird. It doesn't belong in a Friday the 13th film, but whatever.
The eventual body he gets, he goes up her.
Yeah. Oh, the actress didn't like that.
She was not happy about it, because that's not her. It's not her in that.
No, she wouldn't have agreed to it, she said. But anyway, this particular scene, it's very kind of like homoerotic, and, you know, there's no reason why the man is naked, and there's no reason why
Jason is shaving him.
Is Jason is shaving it. It's very homoerotic. And Adam Marcus said in an interview, Crystal Lake Memories, that the only reason that scene is there is because Friday the 13th was obviously known to be very exploitative to the women, you know, like lots of boobies always hanging out, lots of, you know, whenever there's sex, we always see more of the woman than we do of the men. So that scene was there purely to, like a little bit of subjectification.
He said he doesn't know of a scene like this as even came since. And I can appreciate wanting to change things. And this, I feel like Jason Goes to Hell was just a big experiment.
It was an experiment. I understand why people rank this very low. I understand why people think this is the worst. For me, it's not. It's not the worst. Like, I'm not likely to rewatch this again, but I am likely to want to watch it over some of the others in the franchise. Yeah. That's where I sit with it.
So, from this low point, we were supposed to get Freddy vs. Jason pretty much straight away. And as we'll touch on that is went through development hell. I think it had like 15 different scripts, so many different, like, even David S. Goya, I think, did a pass on it. Like,
oh my god, yeah, the Dark Knight guy.
Yeah, so many people had like their fingers in it, and it was just constantly stuck. And Sean S. comes like, we need to do something.
We're gonna do something, guys.
And that's when we got Jason X. This is not a good film, but I have a soft spot for this film. Jason Goes to Space.
I've watched this 3 times because of you.
All right, I will say, the opening is really good.
Okay.
And the last third is really good.
Yeah, okay. The last third.
The opening, like when they wanted to do something to get Jason back out there and known, but they didn't want to mess with the continuity for the film they're about to make. So it's set in the future. Jason's been captured. They've tried killing him multiple ways. Kane Hodder again. And he ends up escaping, and then he fights off with someone, and they both end up frozen for how many years? It's like 400 years or something?
455 years later. So at the research facility, we start in 2008, and then when they're defrosted, they wake up in 2455.
Yeah. Interesting new setting. And I think the characters are really stupid, a lot more unlikable. The production is a bit cheap on the ship. One scene's a blatant rip-off from Aliens, just without the tension.
Oh, look, there's a lot of callbacks to Aliens in this movie.
But it goes all out with its premise.
Yeah,
and that does help it stand out.
I've got more notes on this than I think I have for any of the other Friday films that we're going to talk about today.
I do want to say, the Earth is uninhabitable. Mm-hmm. You got some students that are there like on a field trip. Yeah, essentially, so that's where they find him.
Everyone lives on Earth 2.
Yeah, now. And they have space stations and stuff like that. And there's a ship called the Grendel. Yeah, they find Jason. They find this woman. You have nanotechnology. So the guy accidentally ends up with his arm chopped off. Nanotech fix it. The main downfall of this, other than like certain production things, is that there's a big chunk of the film where we are just explaining the world, but it slows the film down. But like I said, I don't mind just going all in on how it doesn't try to be anything else than Jason in space.
I think as soon as, you've got the basic premise of Jason in space in the future, it's like no matter what the rest of the script is, that premise alone it's just insane.
It is.
It's just insane. But so, we get what we get with it.
Jason's right because he can't die. The rescue, they don't listen to the woman who was with him. I can't remember her name.
Oh, God, I do have it. Rowan, I think. Rowan, similar to Ripley?
Yeah. Space fashion. I think you have notes on space fashion. The fashion in this is ludicrous.
No, it was the way you did it. You're like, space fashion.
Space fashion.
Which is, bizarrely, guys, very early 2000s.
Like, once Jason comes back and starts killing, it's a ton of fun. And I do think this also has one of the best kills in the franchise, which is the...
Oh, everyone loves it, don't they?
Oh, yeah.
It is cool. The liquid nitrogen.
Liquid nitrogen smashed it. It's really cool. And, it got debunked on Mythbusters, but it still looks cool.
It looks cool, yeah. I don't mind that.
But, a lot of the characters are just really dull. Again, I think Rowan as a final girl is a bit...
She's fucking weak sauce.
The other girl in it...
Oh, you like her?
I think she's much more of a final girl.
Oh, I can't remember. What's her name? Oh, I've got it written down. This is the
problem when you get this far into these films.
Yeah, I've got it written down somewhere. I'll find it. Janessa.
I think she... spoiler alert, she doesn't survive.
No.
She goes out very much Alien Resurrection style. Mm-hmm. But we don't kind of see that. I don't think they had the budget for that. But she very much takes charge through a lot of this. I do actually feel like she's more of the final girl than Rowan is.
I think she's more of, in a way, kind of more of an interesting character because, I mean, all right, let's backtrack. Let's backtrack a bit.
Can I also just say, I do feel like this film was kind of stunted before it got a chance to get going. So it was obviously filmed in the late 90s. They had a new line change, and the film got shelved for the better part of 2 years.
Yeah.
And VFX-wise, 90s to early 2000s, within a year, anything looked dated.
Yeah.
So the film also leaked on Pirate Bay.
Yeah.
So a lot of people who wanted to see the film already seen it. So by the time it came out in 2000, I think in the States it was 2001. I think we got it 2002.
Okay.
But it's the lowest grossing film in the franchise.
Mm-hmm.
But when you think about it, it's shelved for 2 years and it leaked online. It's by no means the worst in the franchise. It doesn't deserve to have done as poorly as it did. But think back in the early days of the internet, if a new Friday the 13th was online, you were going to watch it.
Yeah, for sure.
And if you thought it was okay, you're then not going to pay and see it in the cinema. So the film was kind of destined to fail.
It's
all it did was it successfully brought Jason back.
Yeah.
For Freddy vs. Jason. People remembered who Jason was.
Yeah. We've talked about this in a fairly recent video, I think. But, I mean, it's very strange to me now because watching a film made in the 2000s, regardless of the era that the story is set, the fact that it's made in the 2000s, it just has 2000s all over it.
We kind of had that, we realised this with Freddy vs. Jason as well. It weirdly feels the most dated out of all the films.
Absolutely.
Even though it's got a nice polished look to it.
Yeah, it's like I rewatched the original Friday the 13th recently. Obviously it's a dated film, but like watching Jason X, it's like, oh my god, this looks old now. Like the space fashion. But I do want to say the comparisons to Aliens, because once I kind of cottoned onto it, it was really, really hard to ignore. I'm just assuming everyone knows the basic plot of Aliens, but yeah, we've got Rowan, who is essentially the Ripley character, even though she's not by any means an expert in Jason. She just happens to kind of die with him in she ends up in stasis, like in hypersleep essentially, until she's defrosted. She wakes up in the future, very disoriented. She's on a spaceship with crew she doesn't know. She's lied to about Jason initially. You know, first they try and say, oh, we didn't bring him with us, but then she finds out that they have, and he's on board. That's exactly what happens, with Ripley. She's told that we're not going to...
Professor, just how Ripley argues with Gorman.
With Gorman and, what's he called? Burke. Burke tells Ripley, we're just going to go, we're going to go to kill, we're not going to go to bring back. He lied. There's a fucking droid on board, KM-14 or KM-14.
She's a fucking highlight in this film.
Alright, there's one scene where she does stand out, I'm not going to lie.
2 scenes, because a creator tries to put nipples on her.
Yeah.
And they fall off. It's just funny.
They're fine.
I do like... Yeah, that's pretty funny. Everyone is so horny on this ship. And I mean that, obviously it's a Friday the 13th film, but, the professor, he likes to have his nipples clamped. There's a scene...
Continuing on from what was set up in this, that's very homoerotic.
Very homoerotic, but the girl that's on top presumably is one of his students. And she's wearing... No, she's not wearing a negligee. He's wearing a negligee as he's having his nipples played with.
She passes the course purely because she made him.
Oh, yeah. Doesn't it? He's yelling out oh, you pass. You pass. And we have a couple that go off to have sex. And as soon as they do, that's when Jason wakes up. And I do like that, they were talking about it.
Return to morality.
But you can also interpret it as that's what actually wakes Jason up. He's just got radar for whenever someone's having sex. I do really like that. But yeah, also there's another parallel to Aliens.
They have their marine type characters.
The marine type characters go in.
And they go in and it's checking the corners. Jason's taking them out, and it's
so you have.
It's not as well done. But it's pretty...
Shock horror, it's not as well done as it was in Alien.
Some really good kills.
Yeah, there are
But
some
there's
really
also a
good
few like
kills.
off-screen ones. And it's like, oh god, this has gone on for so long. Can it just end?
It's like the marine type characters are like not memorable.
Jesus. You have got to get them out of there.
They know what they're doing.
But yeah, it's like it directly parallels the scene, you know, Ripley and Gorman, and she's like, "You've got to get them out of there, like bring them out." It's like that line is literally said verbatim in this film. It was very on the nose, and yeah, like Rowan, even though she's set up to be the final girl, and she is ultimately, like she does, it just feels like she's not a main character in the second half of
Would
this.
the plot have changed if she wasn't there? No.
No, she doesn't contribute anything.
No.
All she does is when she wakes up say, like, oh, Jason's really dangerous, like, you can't trust him. That's all she does.
I have to say, getting to the best part of this movie, the bit that could have came off as really goofy. Well, you can see the Matrix inspirations here. The android gets reprogrammed with some military tactics in latex, guns, and she shoots the living shit out of Jason.
She goes full
From this
dominatrix
point
on his
onwards,
ass. Yeah.
the movie becomes, I think, really good for this like segment of the film. It becomes like so much fun.
Why didn't they use those weapons sooner?
Yeah, she's using weapons that are into like blowing limbs off Jason. So why weren't they using them?
Out? Why did they just use them half an hour ago? You know, when he was killing all the Marines.
Yeah, so Jason is shot to pieces. She literally blows his head off, blows limbs off, and he kind of just falls into the lab. Jason is dead.
Yeah.
At this point.
He is full blown dead.
Until, well,
Jason.
We get this stupid scene where, like, because of damage that Jason's done, the Grendel kind of crashes into a space station and destroys the space station. It's like, okay, so they've just killed
a load
thousands of people there.
But the Grendel's fine.
But it's a bit damaged, and that causes the machine, the nanotechnology that we know repairs cells, tries to repair Jason, and because the ship's damaged, it's also damaged. It starts looking for synthetic things to rebuild Jason, and that's when we get Uber Jason. And that was just a nickname given to him on production, but it's kind of stuck.
Yeah.
And this is why, again, like going all in on its stupid setting.
Yeah, for sure.
Uber Jason is, I think, actually pretty well liked because it looks so. I know Kane said it was really hard to move him, but he loves it.
Yeah,
he absolutely adores the look of Uber Jason. And then was it Kane? That's not K9. It's K8, is it?
KM14.
Oh, KM14. She just then starts shooting at him, and nothing. Jason's like, not phased. They have a bit of a fight, and then Jason's just an unstoppable killing machine at this point.
Whacks her head off.
Similar to what he did in Manhattan.
Similar to what does in Manhattan. Similar to what happens in Prometheus.
Yeah.
Actually, as well, now that I think of it.
Yeah.
A droid gets
you did the Prometheus reference, not me.
It does lead to some cool kills.
This is probably going to be as long as the Prometheus one. Again, as soon as Uber Jason comes into it, I find it so fun that there's a holodeck which they used earlier on. It's bad CG, but they use it to try and distract Jason. This is another one of my favourite bits in the film. They recreate Camp Crystal Lake to distract him, give him some campers to kill. So we got to see a new version of the sleeping bag kill, which got cut to death in the previous film.
Yeah.
And towards it, do you want to have some premarital sex or smoke some pot? And Jason just
Jason's just like, the fuck.
Hey, you want a beer?
Or do you want to smoke some pot?
Or we can have premarital sex.
It's
yeah.
Again, it's like almost parodying itself.
It is. Yeah.
Again, it's very fun, and Jason's always felt an unstoppable killing machine. Now he is an unstoppable killing machine.
Absolutely.
They literally have to like blow up the ship and send him into space to defeat him, kind of like aliens. And he's like, I can't remember the name of the guard that has survived and kind of tries to like take him. He's great, actually.
Brodsky.
Because he gets stabbed in the back. He's like, it's going to take them all, and they're poking the ribs to take down this little dog.
Yeah.
Another one, he's like, yep.
It's going to take more than a poke in the ribs to put down this old dog. Yeah. That ought to do it.
That'll do it.
He comes back later.
Yeah.
He basically, in a spacesuit, rides Jason through the atmosphere of Earth 2.
Yeah, and they get absolutely incinerated.
I know this character has survived in comic books. Like, I didn't realize this. Like, he became really popular, so they did a line of comics. Because of the lawsuit that stopped content coming to the game, we never got to see Uber Jason in Friday the 13th again. But they released the blog so that the Grendel spaceship was going to be a map and Uber Jason was going to be playable. Eventually, the plan was then go on to Freddy Vs Jason and the remake. It's devastating because that could have changed the game entirely. A completely different setting that wasn't just like forests and campgrounds. It's like we were actually going to go to space and you could play as Uber Jason. I imagine he would have been really tanky, quite slow, but would be able to take a lot of damage.
Yeah.
You could then add space-aged weapons into it. They had so many plans they legally could not do it.
Yeah.
But again, it's another bold choice.
It really is. It's one that doesn't necessarily make a huge ton of sense, considering what we just said about Jason Goes to Hell. The reception of Jason Goes to Hell. Audiences didn't like that it dared to be a bit different. So then fast forward to, you know, when they're making this film, and they went even bolder with making it even more... like, they further separated it from whatever had come before. It doesn't necessarily make sense to me, but the film... it picks up in the second half, or like, you know, maybe like the last half an hour, because I do like Janessa's death where she's sucked through like the vacuum.
Even though we don't actually see it.
It's the sound of it is horrible.
The sequence leading up to it is really good. Like, this really sucks.
Oh, this sucks on so
I'm sure a
many
critic
levels.
just quoted that.
Yeah, there's another female character who's she sees her boyfriend being stabbed in front of her,
dumb.
and she just like basically has a breakdown. And
To be fair,
she's
I'll give
one
it
of
this. It does kind of pave the way throughout the film for her to have this breakdown.
It does, but at the same time, she's one of those characters. It's like you just know, like you're just waiting for her to die. Like she makes so many mistakes. Like all the female characters are like, oh, it's gonna be okay, don't worry. Like, you know, we just need to stay strong. It's like, fuck this character. And then they put her in charge of this really important job, even though she's clearly like not stable to do anything.
She basically like tries to leave in the one escape for the shuttle, and
Yeah.
doesn't disconnect the fuel line, so it just blows up part of the ship.
It just blows up part of the ship.
So not the highlight in the franchise, but I would still watch it over Jason Goes to Hell.
Just a few. See, that's the distinction for me. I wouldn't.
You wouldn't.
I would not choose to rewatch Jason X.
It's one of those. If it's on Netflix, I'm just going to put it on because
I know,
Jason X.
But you have nostalgia for it.
It was one of the first DVDs I ever bought.
So just a few other facts about it. In the film, they mentioned that hockey is outlawed in 2024 because when they first encounter Jason, they're like, oh, he's wearing a hockey mask. And then a few of the students are like, what's that? Like, what's a hockey mask? Hockey gets banned next year, apparently. The film was directed by Jim Isaac, who worked on special effects on Return of the Jedi. He worked special effects on Gremlins and also Arachnophobia. He worked a lot with David Cronenberg on The Fly, Naked
David
Lunch.
Cronenberg has a cameo in
He does,
this.
so there was a pre-established relationship there. That's why Cronenberg gets murked very early on in the film.
Well, Barry, you always wanted to get killed in a Friday the 13th movie.
The film was also written by a guy called Todd Farmer, who
wrote himself into the film.
He has a habit of doing that because he also co-wrote My Bloody Valentine 3D in 2009.
The really gratuitous sex scene. Fair. Also, one of the best scenes in that movie.
Yeah, very memorable. Yeah, he wrote himself in as a Marine character in this, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah. See, I know there's a lot of nostalgia for this film for you. I did enjoy watching it this time, but it's so far removed from what I associate Friday the 13th with. I just wouldn't necessarily choose to rewatch this unless you really wanted to. But I know for a fact, if I'm home alone, I'm never going to think, hey, Jason X. I haven't seen that in a while.
When I tried to get a hold of... I know at my parents' house somewhere I've got the DVD of it. But I didn't have time to go get it.
Yeah.
When I looked to get in the Blu-ray was either really expensive or came in a 2-pack with Jason Goes to Hell. And I just didn't want to spend the money on that.
No, I know.
So I chose to buy Freddy Vs Jason instead.
Yeah, you did.
So, moving on to that. 2003.
So it finally happens. They
this film was
finally
also
make a Freddy
20
vs.
years old,
Jason movie. Yeah. Also, we're saying, probably implied, but Jason X basically came about because, again, they were just stalling for time until they could make Freddy vs. Jason.
So, we've talked about how there was writing problems and everything. It's time we bring this guy out.
But it finally happened.
It finally happened. And, all right, it's fun. It's enjoyable. All that matters with this film is when two characters are throwing it down.
Yeah.
It's great.
Yeah.
The characters are fucking dumb. I do think it's quite respectful to both franchises, although I'd say it is more of a Nightmare film than a Friday film. I think purely because Freddy talks, so Freddy is very much a narrator.
Yeah, and has a sense of humour. Twisted sense of humour, but one
I do
nonetheless.
think it blends the two worlds together quite well.
Yeah.
It's just the dumb characters and awful writing that kind of pull the movie down. Kane Hodder does not return. He'd been really wanting to do this film for years.
Yeah.
And apparently executives at New Line just didn't want. They wanted to do something
It's-
different. They associated him with a goofy era of Friday.
Yeah, I
And-
think they also just wanted a different take on Jason because
Yes.
they also various people have mentioned that Kane, like there was quite like an aggressiveness to Kane's Jason, whereas in this film to work with the story they needed Jason to be a little bit more, I don't know, more of a victim perhaps.
More of a victim. They wanted to show a lot more of his eyes. They wanted to make him smarter. He's definitely smarter in this one.
Yeah, and the guy was taller as well than Kane Hodder.
Yeah, Ronnie Yu, who directed this, he also directed Bride of Chucky.
Oh, he did.
He said to them, because I know people kind of don't like that he had never seen a Nightmare film or a Friday film, but I think because it was written by massive fans of both franchises, I think having someone, because I don't think a lot of the direction's a problem. I think it looks really pretty. Might not have spent enough time with the actors.
Mm-hmm.
I think having someone who can be clear-headed within, isn't fanboying every single scene, I think was a benefit. And he said, I'll use Kane if you want to use Kane. Studio said no. You went, right, we'll use someone else. So they got Ken Kersinger.
They did get
Who
Ken Kersinger.
Actually has been in the series before.
Mm-hmm.
He was in, I think we mentioned it in the last one, he's in Jason Takes Manhattan.
Yeah.
He is the guy in the dino, gets thrown against a mirror, and he also doubled for Kane Hodder in 2 scenes.
Yeah.
So he has been Jason before. And I think he does, I don't mind the redesign, like the dark skin.
I think he does a really good
I think
job.
this is like the first Friday, it might have been the first Friday I watched.
I've never had a problem with any Jason, to be
They
honest.
gave him a nice clean mask. They offered Betsy Palmer back and she said no.
She said no, she didn't.
She wasn't happy with the
I
script.
think she said more than no.
Jason. My special boy.
Yeah. Obviously, Robert Englund returns as Freddy Krueger.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
I think so. It's the 12th Friday film and the 8th Nightmare film.
Mm.
And it's fine. That's the best way to describe it. I have a lot of fun watching this one, but it's just Monica Keenan. I'm sorry, but she can't act.
Monica
She's
Keena is very exceptionally bad.
I think some of the dialogue is really. I think there's 2 characters. It was Catherine Isabel, who we really liked.
Yeah, she plays a character called Gib, who was one of my favourite characters throughout this film, up until she gets killed.
Yeah, and another character who's in the asylum.
He's called Mark.
Also
he was
really good.
Probably the best actor in the whole film, actually. And he also got killed. My 2 favourite characters got killed in very quick succession, one after the other.
After that, we're kind of stuck with Kelly Rowland being the best of the bad bunch.
Who does all right, actually. Kelly
Again, it's
Rowland.
like the dialogue in this is so bad.
It's really is. Like, can't state that enough. It's very bad.
Also, the 2 writers of this, I can't remember their names, but they went on to write. There's one point that Friday fans hate.
Mark Swift and Damien Shannon.
Yeah, they said that this next point I'm about to say, they did not write in there that happened in rewrites, and they made Jason, because the first fight between the 2 of them, because all right, basic plot, Freddy wants to come back. He's been trying to come back, but
everyone's forgotten about him.
Springwood, they've made, all the adults have made sure that everyone forgets about him. Anyone that dreams about Freddy is sent to the asylum from Dream Warriors and given Hypnosil, the drug that makes them not dream. They want to make sure no one knows who Freddy is, and then he can't come back because he's not powerful enough.
Mm-hmm.
So Freddy brings Jason back. Jason can't die. He's basically just not. I think Jason just kind of like not realised that he's still alive.
Freddy meets Jason in hell
and
decides he can use him as a pawn.
Yeah. He disguises himself as Jason's mother, who's the woman who takes the part of it.
She's good.
She was really good.
She's good.
Make them remember me, Jason. Make them remember what fear tastes like.
And convinces Jason that children are very bad on Elm Street and he has to go. So Jason gets up. He's like, all right, off I go.
Off I go.
Because you essentially have like the cast, main cast is actually more of a Friday cast, and you have the cast inside the asylum, which are more the Nightmare cast.
The Nightmare cast, yeah.
So he wants to make people more afraid, so the people who know his name will start kind of saying it, and he can get more powerful and eventually start killing. The problem is, he can't stop Jason from killing.
Yeah.
Like
he
with
can't control him.
Like, Freddy is about to get his first kill, and Jason steals it.
She's mine! Mine!
Yeah, Jason, you can't control Jason Voorhees. Only his mum can rein in Jason Voorhees.
And
but yeah.
I can't remember the point why I started explaining this. Oh, yeah. Their first fight is in the dream world. Which is great. I love that we have a physical fight in the dream fight. Because these 2 characters, they've got different... Because the second fight is at Crystal Lake.
Yeah.
Which people have pointed out, like when they drive Jason's asleep body there, it must have been at least like 8 hours.
Yeah.
And apparently they had filmed lots of scenes of them like stopping off and stuff like that. But when they cut it down, it looks like they just drove down the road and they were there.
Yeah.
They made it so that Jason was afraid of water.
Yeah.
But they wrote that he might have
a subconscious fear of drowning.
Yeah.
So you are afraid of something after all, huh?
Which would make sense.
The thing is, Jason has a lot. Jason swam to Manhattan from Vancouver.
He lives by a lake.
He spent a decade just under the water.
I think he's pretty comfortable with water.
But that's how Freddy gets the upper hand and realizing that he's afraid of water. And it just doesn't... I don't like that. It doesn't make sense.
No, it doesn't make sense, although I do like
Freddy. Also, they are trying to be quite respectful to both continuities.
Yeah.
For the most part.
I think they do a pretty good job. Even though, like the whole water thing people didn't like. But I do like Freddy's line where it dawns on him and he's like, you are afraid of something.
Let's dig a little deeper. Robert Englund fucking kills it in this film.
He does.
He is Freddy.
I mean, first question though, is this more Freddy's film than Jason's?
Yeah.
Freddy is the one that's like
puppeteering
the... pulling the strings, pretty much. He sets the plot in motion, Freddy.
He does. Well, he's got first name, doesn't he?
Yeah, we start the film with him.
I would have called it. Again, I don't think they could have used Friday the 13th. I think because of the writers, I would have called it Friday on Elm Street.
Someone's probably going to take that and run with it.
Yeah. Nightmare the 13th. That doesn't work as well. I think Friday on Elm Street would be so much better. But Freddy, all the issues this film has, when they throw down, it's just I smile throughout that entire thing. I'm so glad they cut the line where Monica goes, Freddy versus Jason, place your bet.
But someone wasn't happy with that.
Harry Tarantino wasn't happy with it.
Tarantino went to see this film because that line was in the trailer, the original trailer, I guess, for the movie. And Tarantino went to see the film because Tarantino's a big fan of horror. And he was apparently really disappointed that line wasn't there because he said, that's the only reason I came to see this. Like, I wanted to see that line. I wanted to hear it on the big screen.
Yeah. I think it's definitely a case of, like, over the course of, like, 10 years, too many people, too many fingers in pies, trying to please... Well, they pointed out that, like, Sean S. Cunningham has creative control over Jason. Wes Craven, he didn't like it. He thought it was just brutality for the sake, but he doesn't. He was well and truly done with...
Yeah.
And he didn't retain any rights, so he couldn't control what they did with Freddy.
Mm-hmm.
Sean S. Cunningham was very particular what they did with Jason.
With Jason, yeah. I mean, it kind of makes sense when you sort of say it out loud, but like obviously Friday the 13th, Nightmare on Elm Street, two very beloved franchises. People have very strong opinions on both of those franchises. And when you have a film called Freddy vs. Jason, you know, if there's going to be a clear winner, there can't necessarily be a clear winner because you're going to immediately divide or anger, you know, one side of the one camp, basically.
But also,
I think they did an okay job with the story.
Crossovers were not that common back then. Obviously, after this would get Alien vs. Predator, which had been teased for a long time. That was stuck in development for almost just as long.
This predates that by a long shot.
And
a year.
Yeah, 2 years?
2 years.
No, 1 year. So a little bit of production around the same time. Obviously, Marvel, crossovers, it happens all the time. This was massive. They did a boxing style weigh-in for the two of them.
This was huge.
And it made the most money out of both franchises.
Budget was 30 million and it grossed 116.6 million.
Yeah, the highest out of any Friday film,
both franchises,
any Nightmare film.
Yeah.
So no matter what critics thought, it did really, really. It was always going to do really well. Would it have done any better with Kane? Kane's always said
it's a bit of a shame.
Kane's always said he doesn't think there's anything in that film that he couldn't have done.
Yeah, he said he didn't understand why he was recast, because in his mind, what Ken Kersinger did was everything that Kane could have delivered as well. So he didn't necessarily see the logic for it.
They're very different Jasons in a lot of ways, but I don't know. It would have been. I think obviously Robert's a professional, and he's like. I think he also wanted it to be Kane.
Yeah. I think so as well. I will say as well, just personally, I'm not as familiar with Nightmare on Elm Street. It's not my favourite horror franchise. I have big gaps in my knowledge
I'm working on it.
About the franchise. Like, you're a lot more familiar with it and you love the Nightmare movies. So I'm always Team Jason. Like, regardless, I'm always Team Jason. But yeah, this is probably more of Freddy's film. And as I say, we start the film with Freddy. He narrates his own origin. But even though, like, I have gaps in Nightmare on Elm Street, my knowledge of it, but this one does, to me, kind of infer a little bit more about Freddy's relationship with the kids that he kills. The fact that he is a child killer, because
something that they went quite far with in the reboot.
2010 one, which people did not like, from what I understand. People didn't like that it was so kind of in your face. Like, they prefer the ambiguity of it. But
it's hard to enjoy a character when they go that far. If they just hint at it, you can...
there's a
But I think they definitely want to set it up where you root for Jason in this. Jason is the more sympathetic character.
Jason is definitely the more sympathetic
so we got to see child Jason again.
Yeah, exactly.
Apparently there was a version of the script where Freddy was a camp counselor who assaulted him.
Ooh.
But that got... One of the many rewrites was disappeared.
Interesting. I would be fascinating to see like all the versions of the ideas that got cut.
Yeah.
But we start the film where, I mean, he kills a little girl, Freddy, and then we see her as a ghost talking to Monica Keena, who, by the way, is called Laurie. And she says the line, "His name is Freddy Krueger and he loves children, especially little girls."
Oof.
And it's like, that line alone, you know, I personally feel there's only one way you can interpret that.
Yeah.
There's also a scene later on where Laurie she's gone to sleep. I think they've tranquilized her because the whole plot
bring him out of the dream.
She's going to bring Freddy out of the dream world into reality so Jason can kill him. So while she's in the dream world, Freddy captures her and he starts torturing her. And I think she's a virgin. I think she's meant to be a virgin in this. And there's a scene where Freddy's basically kind of on top of her, and he says a line like, you know...
First time gets a little...
messy. Get a little messy. And then his finger knife kind of strolls up her leg, and then it disappears.
You see her slicing.
And
Don't quite know what's going on down there.
Yeah, I think the film, it doesn't even hint it. It just kind of gives you glimpses into Freddy's very predatory, sexual predatory nature. So that was just a bit of a standout.
I did really like when Kelly Rowland was making fun of him for his tiny little butter knives. Now he might be compensating for something. That whole scene, I really liked.
It was fun.
But it's part of that fun bit once they start throwing down. Like, everything that kind of happens is...
Yeah.
Because I love that that fight is actually mostly filmed in wides as well.
Mm-hmm.
Not a lot of quick cutaways. Like, you're just seeing slash, stab, slash. And
Slashy,
it's like...
stabby.
And blood everywhere. It's like,
yeah,
that's what I want to see. Apparently, Robert Englund wanted to do a lot of his own stunts. And
he did do it for a few.
But he was also in his 50s.
Yeah.
And they have to be careful. Like, even... There's a great stunt where Jason's set on fire.
Oh, the rave scene.
The rave scene, which I do like. Some annoying characters. But Ken couldn't do it because they're like, we're hiring you as an actor, not a stuntman.
Yeah.
I think legally they couldn't get... Apparently there's like a time limit in which an actor can be set on fire for.
Yeah.
And they just couldn't do it. He really wanted to.
Yeah.
But they're like, legally, we just can't do it. So they got another stuntman in to do it. 3 different people actually played Jason in this. There's a different stuntman there, and there's a pickup shot at the end where they had to get someone else who did audition for Jason, but lost to Ken Kersey and got asked back for final shot. But yeah, that is a great scene. You got Jason on fire, slashing people. The deaths might not look great there, but the fact that he's actually on fire doing it, it's cool. It's really cool.
It is cool. There's another moment, I think it's a bit later on in the film. We have a stoner character in this called Freeberg. And Ronnie Yu as a director clearly likes his stoners, because there's one in Bride of Chucky as well.
Rude fucking doll.
And Freeberg, so they've broken into this hospital, I think, in an attempt to just like stockpile on the Hypnosil because they want to stop themselves from dreaming.
Oh, this is the CG Freddy worm thing.
Yeah, Freddy possesses the stoner, and he imagines Freddy as this like weird worm that's also like smoking a spliff or whatever.
Freddy's been a lot of strange worm type characters throughout his own films.
But he possesses the stoner to tranquilize Jason, but Jason then cuts the guy in half.
Clean in half.
And I actually enjoyed that as a kill, like that the whole sequence sort of leading up to it. I quite liked. I do like how Freddy uses Jason's mum to continuously fuck with him throughout the whole film.
Yeah. One thing else, you won't get this, but whenever Freddy Krueger says bitch, there's a character in Rick and Morty called Scary Terry who just says bitch. He's a play on Freddy Krueger. So now whenever I watch this, it's like, let me deal with this bitch.
Yeah.
Die, bitch. I just keep thinking of Scary Terry.
Welcome to my world, bitch. Yeah. We have
obviously the ending of Who Wins is pretty, you can't annoy one or the other. I do actually like the alternate ending, which is sent 2 months later, where she's losing her virginity. Her boyfriend gets possessed by Freddy.
By Freddy.
We get to see his fingernails come out of his hand, which is very reminiscent of Freddy's Revenge.
Yeah. Yeah, I prefer the ending that they went with in the film. I like seeing Jason emerge from the lake holding Freddy's decapitated head.
Oh, the wink, the laugh.
Freddy literally gets the last laugh.
Yeah, I do love it. Because Jason wins the fight.
Jason has help from Laurie.
Yeah.
And whatever her boyfriend is called.
I know, I always forget who he is.
I
do love when he puts Freddy's arm through his back, and you can see like the shoulder bone that he's torn out.
Yeah.
The fight, like I said, does the final fight work? Yes, that's kind of all that matters with this film. If that didn't work, it'd be such a forgettable thing. But it was also such a landmark, weirdly, in cinema just for crossovers. The fact that they could make this happen.
It is true. Like, you're in it. You go and see a film called Freddy vs. Jason. You're in it for the showdown. Like, at the end of the day, like, that's what you want. And I do think the final showdown is pretty cool. And also, kudos to the stunt guys because, really, really fun to watch.
Some good deaths in this one.
But yeah, the characters, like, you can't just say because it's a slasher you can ignore characters. It's like, and in this one, because we spend so much freaking time with the same group of people,
we're all trying to work out things that we as the audience already know. It's like we're stuck with the final girl who, Monica Keena, like she just doesn't do a good job. She's been even though she's in the Crystal Lake Memories documentary actually talked about it, she has actually said how bad the script was. Now she only did it to raise her profile.
It's weird because
and I think you can tell her performance just does not want to be there. But I don't know if she's warmed to it over the years.
I don't know. Yeah, but it seems like she must have because when she's in the Crystal Lake Memories documentary, she's very
into it,
and like how her character had a connection with Jason, and like how she's always loved Jason as a character, and
it's like Freddy vs. Who won? I won.
It was me.
I don't know if she's
victim.
warmed to it.
I don't know, maybe.
But
her performance isn't good.
Yeah. They did have sequel ideas for this. Initially, they wanted to do Freddy versus Jason versus Michael.
Yeah.
But they thought then you've got 2/3 of your cast don't talk.
Yeah.
So, an idea and a script that went around was Freddy versus Jason versus Ash.
Yeah.
Which is here. And Sam Raimi apparently was really up for it.
Mm-hmm.
But again, you got bringing more studios in there. I think it was just going to be too complicated. So they did it brought out as a comic.
Yeah.
Where her character is killed off by Jason in the first few pages. She was so angry.
She found that out because she was at HorrorCon and someone gave the comic for her to sign. And it was the first time she'd seen it. And she was like, oh, this is cool. And then the guy that was like, oh yeah, you're in it. Like, your character's in it. Turn to page 2.
She's like, Freddy isn't even on the scene yet.
I know.
He killed me with a machete that I gave him back.
I
quite like that, but also the comic is really good.
Yeah.
It would have been a fun film, but also, like, let's be fair, Bruce Campbell in the early 2000s, he was not the Bruce Campbell.
Yeah.
I think if that idea could have been done, if it was going to be done, it should have been done in the 90s.
Yeah.
When they wanted to do Freddy vs. Jason. I think there was a lot of the whole, it was just going to be far too complicated.
Just to talk a bit about the opening, because whilst these characters aren't the best, we do get a really cool kill at the beginning. So there's Catherine Isabel's character, Gib, who...
Oh, God, yeah.
I don't know how you describe her character. Like, she's not a girly girl. She's a little bit of a tomboy, I guess.
Very early 2000s.
Very early 2000s. Like, she likes wearing her caps. But she's the funny one. And she's dating this fucking guy.
She was in Ginger Snaps, wasn't she?
She was in Ginger Snaps. She's been in a lot of horrors.
Yeah, she's a scream queen.
Cult horror. Yeah, she's a scream queen. And she's dating this guy. I can't remember his name, but he's a douchebag. Like, very emotionally manipulative.
Babe,
like,
don't make me ask you twice.
Babe, don't make me ask you twice. Babe, I don't like you to kiss me after you've had a cigarette. Like,
Babe,
one
I
of those.
don't want to be touched after.
But the thing I like about her
good,
is, like, she knows he's a dickhead.
Yeah.
Like, she's constantly rolling her eyes and she constantly tells him to fuck off or, like, oh, you're an arsehole.
I think there's good lines. It's like, why do you see him? I don't know. He's got a cute ass.
He's got a cute ass.
Or something like that.
So, like, he comes to this house. He goes to Laurie's house with his mate, Blake. And him and Gib go upstairs to have sex. Yeah, babe, don't make me ask you twice. Well, they have sex. And she goes into the shower. While she's in the shower, Jason appears. Stabs the guy.
Multiple times.
And then folds the bed in half.
Yeah. You see, because he stabs in the point where his heart falls out the bottom. Yeah, it's apparently they have to fight tooth and nail to get that killing, but it's... probably the most memorable
Yeah.
kill from the entire film, and it's great.
Like the most
I don't know if
douchebaggy
I can
character.
show any of these kills.
Interestingly as well, it is really cool to see because he's such a dickhead of a character as well. And yeah,
They
he
set
does,
him up
like,
so
hold on to his
quickly
beard.
to be a character you want to see die.
Yeah,
and then
and
it does.
it pays
It's
off.
really satisfying.
Something that is a bit of a shame to hear is that
Quick sidebar. Doesn't end, like Jason X, doesn't end in a thunderstorm, in a rainstorm. Usually a Friday film will end that way.
Yeah.
This sequence is during a rainstorm because this is meant to be a typical Friday the 13th setup.
Yeah.
But that isn't during the final fight. And even though it's at Crystal Lake, I think it would have been nice to have the rain.
Yeah.
Anyway, I know what you bring up what you can say.
Yes. So whilst she's in the shower whilst he's being killed, and Catherine Isabel had it written in her contract that she has a no nudity clause, which, you know, very clear. She does not want to do any nude scenes in any of the films she does, and everything was agreed on. She comes to do the film, and Ronnie Yu, the director, thought he could convince her to do a nude scene regardless, and apparently they came to blows on it. They argued about it quite a lot on the
I
set.
think this sequence was the last thing they shot.
It must have been, because there is like a bird's
It's also
eye
the
view.
end of a long production as well.
Yeah, bird's eye view of a woman in the shower who's meant to be her. But I mean, I said to you as we were watching it, I was like, that is clearly not Catherine Isabel.
Yeah.
That's clearly not her. So it's like, that's uncool, and it was a shame to
I'm
hear
glad she
about
stood
that.
her ground.
Oh, I am too. I don't think legally they have a leg to stand on. She's
No,
got
they don't.
that in her contract, like no nudity. You can't force someone to do that. So yeah, we do get a bit of a gratuitous boob shot in the shower, but you know, whatever, I guess.
Yeah.
I did like her character. I like Mark as well, like we mentioned. Yeah, it's not. I don't know. Like, I don't rank this very high.
It's in the middle for me. I've watched it
was
a
fun.
lot because I had it on DVD when I was a kid, and I
Yeah.
really enjoyed. I got a lot of enjoyment rewatching it once they start fighting.
Yeah. I think it's also for me, again.
I think it's been pointed out. Robert Englund pointed out that, and the cover art, Freddy's gloves on the wrong hand.
For me, though, as well, like I say, I'm not a huge Nightmare on Elm Street aficionado.
Yet.
So, could change.
You said this about the Chucky franchise.
It could very well change. So for
I've got them all.
But for me, as a Friday the 13th fan, this is a film that only has Jason in, like, I don't know,
A supporting role.
a supporting role, basically, as well. And yes, I know Jason Goes to Hell, like we've established, he's not in that for a long amount of time as well. But Jason Goes to Hell still feels a bit more like a traditional Friday film in many ways. I do appreciate that the plot that they came up with, whilst it is a bit convoluted and a little bit complex to follow at times, like, you know, the dream world and Crystal Lake and, you know, the plan, it was pretty, I don't know, I don't see what else you could have done, really.
Yeah.
To connect these two franchises together. So it was fun to watch. Very dated though, as I say. The fact that Kelly Rowland is there as well. It's like, hi Kelly Rowland.
Is she still trying to text on XL? That's Kelly Rowland, wasn't it?
That was Kelly Rowland, yeah, Dilemma.
Yeah.
Oh god. 20 years
But
old.
both
Freddy versus
franchises
Jason.
kind of ended there.
Yeah.
In continuity, like that is.
Fire versus water.
Oh god, let's not do that. Let's move on.
Right,
So,
where are we?
reboot. We then didn't get another Friday film until 2009.
We didn't.
We fucking love this film.
We do.
We really enjoy this film.
We do.
I know a lot of people don't.
Really do
a lot
like
of people
this.
think it's just fine. To be right, so it's directed by Marcus Nispel, who did Texas Chainsaw 2003. The cinematographer was a cinematographer on the Texas Chainsaw 2003 and
Yeah.
the original one, so it just kind of look and feel like it.
Yes.
What I really like about this film, and it's also a complaint for most people, is it doesn't do anything different. I'm like, but when Friday's done stuff different, people haven't liked it. And This is like
This is a return
basics.
to formula.
Jason is human again.
Jason is human.
And what I really like, if you split the film into quarters, you can see influences and story beats from the original 4 films. It's almost like a condensed. They didn't want to do Pamela Voorhees.
No.
So the prologue is her getting killed and Jason seeing it. All right, so we've done the first film there. The second film, I've got it there because this is him from that film. We have The Return of Sackhead Jason. And I really like how it's kind of like a wraparound, and probably the best sequence in the film with the initial set of campus. Some amazing kills. We see Jason as more of a hunter-gatherer. He actually moves. Derek Mears is one of my favourite Jasons.
Derek Mears.
I could listen to him talk about being Jason and what it means to be Jason all day.
Yeah.
Because he just seems like the
Such a
most
sweetheart.
lovely person.
Yeah.
Who, for me, played one of the best incarnation Jason. The third part, which is set in a barn where he gets the traditional mask.
Yeah. He gets to talk
And
about
it ends in a house where a bunch of friends are staying for the weekend, like the fourth one. So
Yeah.
I really like that, and it's a nice attention to detail. They've got to use the name Friday the 13th again.
Yep.
We have Sam Winchester from Supernatural, Jared Padalecki.
We have Jared Padalecki.
They pick up on a plot point from the fourth one of a brother wanting revenge for his sister, and kind of change it to he's looking for his sister because
who's
he was missing from the beginning of the film. I like that.
I do. I think it improves on part 4, actually. And I know that's controversial, but in my opinion, they did that storyline way better
I feel
here.
as time's gone on, people like this film a lot more. We watched the extended cut, which doesn't take much story, but it's mainly like you find out what happens to more of the bodies as time goes on.
Yeah.
Some great kills. No one dies in the same way.
Nope.
They even, by making him a man, again, they take the supernatural elements out. They even leave an explanation as to how he kind of appears in places. There's mines underneath it.
Yeah. He's underground.
Jared Padalecki's Clay, so I was looking for a sister who bears a bit of a resemblance to Jason's mother, apparently. So that's why he kind of captures her.
Yeah.
Probably think, like, again, it's looked a little bit into the psychology of Jason, and the surrounding area, they know about him.
Mm-hmm.
And they say he just wants to be left alone. He has grounds that he looks after, like, just leave him be.
Yeah.
I like how they try to recharacterize Jason. He's very smart.
It's even like in the prologue, the very extended prologue, fake out prologue, basically. We get a little throwback to part 2 where sitting around a campfire and
telling the story.
Wade, one of the characters, is talking about the legend of Jason and Camp Crystal Lake, but then also Richie then kind of says like, wait, do you know how many lakes are probably called Camp Crystal Lake?
Do you know how many lakes are probably called Crystal Lake? It's Crystal Geyser, Crystal Water. Go to a supermarket. Every single bottle of water is Crystal something.
Aquafina.
Okay, fine. Okay. The story could have happened anywhere, dude. That's how they get little kids to shit themselves.
Which I really like.
I just like that whole scene. The latest
memorable.
sleeping bag kill was great.
Oh,
fire.
Yes. Oh god, yeah.
That is brutal.
Girl in a sleeping bag hanging over
Fire.
a burning hot fire. Which
great use of. It's
awesome.
a mix. There is a lot of visual effects scenes, but in minor bits, like adding extra flames there.
Yeah.
To go around it. A lot of the weapons that are going to people's heads are doing like blade extensions.
Yeah.
So they could, rather than cutting away a lot, they can show the weapons going in.
Yeah.
And I really like that. It's VFX used to support, not distract. And a lot of the shots I didn't even realise were VFX. I like a lot of the characters.
I like all of the characters.
Chewie is incredibly fun.
Chewie, yeah. So Chewie's not part of the prologue. He's part of like the main set
Who are
of
just going
characters
to this rich douchebag's house for the weekend.
Yeah. Okay. Right. So we start the film with the prologue. Group of campers massacred, and Whitney. We don't actually see her be killed, but she's, as Dave was saying, like, is Clay's sister. She's the one that's missing, and he's the reason why
Jason runs
he's now
in
on
that.
the scene.
We haven't seen Jason run since part 2.
Yeah.
When he's wet the sack.
But then I think we fast forward to like 2 months later, and now we have our main set of characters who are all going to Trent's like family cabin for the weekend. So we've got the character of Trent, who is the absolute douchiest character.
Travis Van Winkle. Who
Played
just seems
by
like the nicest guy.
Yeah, it was like really funny actually. And I think him and Jared Padalecki are still friends. And he's dating Jenna, or is interested in Jenna, who's played by Danielle Panabaker.
Padalecki.
Strong names in this, man.
Fans of the CW Arrowverse will know her. That's probably what she's most famous for.
Yeah. And then we get some other fun characters too. We've got Chewie, we've got Lawrence, who just basically kind of want to get stoned and masturbate the whole weekend. We have the character of Bree. She's just kind of got the hots for Trent and doesn't care that he's arrived with another girl.
Her friend.
Yeah, I think is it Ashley, the character called? Yeah. And then like we've got some interesting, I think, memorable characters that stand out.
Travis Van Winkle,
the other parts in the franchise,
is probably one of the best parts of this film as being the most unlikable character. You are just he's destined to die. You are just waiting for it to happen. His death is extremely drawn out and really well done. But right, so this was made by Platinum Dunes.
Yeah.
It was run by Michael Bay.
Yeah.
Travis Van Winkle appears in Transformers film with the exact same name, Trent. I can't remember his last name, but you look on IMDb, he is credited as the same character.
Yeah.
It doesn't make It's never been commented on. Obviously he noticed it. He's like, I don't know the reason. Michael never told me.
It has been confirmed that they're the same person.
They are the same person?
Yeah, they are the same person. I double checked it.
But that doesn't make any sense.
It doesn't make any sense. But
so Friday the 13th is meant to be in a world where transforming aliens.
Apparently so.
And it's not mentioned.
Imagine that as a crossover.
I think that's just a throwaway line that Michael Bay's done at some point.
Yeah.
I reckon he forgot what he'd named his character in the previous film.
It could be, but I do like that's like a thing.
But his death is, a lot of the deaths in this are really good.
They really are.
The film has a great polish about it. Like, it looks great.
It does. But to go back to that later, I also think that is an issue for people. But we'll talk about that in a bit.
But do they really want to make the film look... They really want the film to look like it came out in the 80s.
I think we'll address, because at the time when this came out, people didn't like it. I know a lot of fans it's kind of, I don't know, it's middling, this film.
Things it still did okay at the box office, didn't it?
It did very, very well, yeah. But yeah, for the most part, I really like the characters here. They're all kind of memorable in their own way. They're all different enough in their own way. So we have action going on at the house. We've got Trent and Bree, who have a very, very memorable sex scene as well.
Oh, the lines. He hated those lines, didn't he?
Who wouldn't? Oh, also, apparently the actress that played Bree had to get herself drunk to do the scene because it was just so ridiculous.
Yeah. What was that? You got perfect nipple placement.
Your tits are fucking stupendous. I've got around 8 seconds and then I'm gone. Oh, you have perfect nipple placement, baby. These are lines.
The thing is that he pulls them off well.
To deliver.
Yeah.
With a semi-straight face. So yeah, there's stuff going on at the house. We've got Chewie and we've got Lawrence who are, just getting drunk and we're being very horny, like typical Friday the 13th film. You have Jenna, who's kind of teamed up with Clay at this point because she's sympathetic to him. She wants to help him find his sister because Trent's been an arsehole to him and doesn't want to get involved. So the characters, they split off. And we get some really awesome kills. We get, again, I think her name is Ashley, the one that, what do you call it, on the boat when she's like... We
missed 2 characters there because we've got the boat and again, there's a couple of characters' names I can't remember.
Yeah, but what do you call it, the thing that they're doing?
The speedboat. Oh, the jet skis.
The jet ski, yeah. So she does it topless. She gets killed, her boyfriend gets killed, an arrow straight to the head, she gets knocked out by the boat and then stabbed through the head. Jason's machete.
That's great. Like, through the dock and pulls her up.
Yeah.
It's pretty cool. And in the extended cut, you see her body just kind of in the marshlands.
Yeah.
It's really cool.
It's one thing I think this film does quite well in comparison to some of the other films. The characters feel like when they do come up against Jason, they either put up a fair fight.
Chewie puts up an amazing fight.
He does. Or the fear just feels a little bit more... I don't know, they linger on it a bit more, so the tension is heightened.
I think because a lot of the... Again, scenes like cutting the blades in half and digitally extending them. It meant they could have a lot of scenes with the character in shot with Jason being killed.
Yeah.
And I think that really helps.
It does. Yeah, it definitely helps. Like Chewie, his showdown with Jason, it also ends on a bit of a laugh, or it starts with a laugh.
I could give him the hockey stick and say, oh, it completes your outfit.
It completes your outfit, bro. Yeah.
Are you looking for this? Because it completes your outfit.
And that actor, Aaron Yu, I think he's called, he went all out with his death scene. He wanted it to be bloodier, and he
asked Derek Mears to throw him, even though he just had his appendix out.
Pushing those boundaries. And even Derek Mears was like, dude, you're insane.
Yeah. But at least it was a really cool scene.
Yeah, it does.
And everyone in that film talks really fondly about it.
Absolutely. And Lawrence, his best mate, he goes out to try and find Chewie because he's like, he's my boy. I'm not leaving him. Bros, guys. And he has a cool... He actually manages to get away from Jason for a while. And it was just, unfortunately, Jason's good at axe throwing. So that's what does that guy in.
Again, they set it up. We got to see his body in the jacuzzi, which is really cool.
Yeah.
Because again, Jason positions... It feels like he's positioning the bodies around to scare them.
Yeah. And
I feel like there's a reference to Silent Night, Deadly Night,
Yeah.
It's in the bathroom. When one of the characters gets killed, gets put up on some antlers.
Oh, she does. Yeah, she has 4 different deaths throughout the whole film.
Because choked by Jason. On the antlers, Trent gets a gun, gets a bit spooked, and shoots through the door where her body is.
Accidentally shoots
and then Jason throws her out the window, which, Travis Van Winkle, if anyone's seen the short that I did on it, has the best scream in the Friday the 13th franchise. It's amazing.
It's wonderful.
And it just proves like why he's such a good character in this film.
It's such a wonderful scene. Like he's a bad character because like obviously he's just a dickhead. Like you're kind of rooting for him to die, but he's fun to watch. He really is fun to watch. And I can count on maybe one hand how interesting the male characters in Friday the 13th are. Like he is for sure one of the most memorable boy characters throughout the
I'd say he's even more memorable than Jared Padalecki.
I think he is in a way as well. I mean, he's got more fun stuff to do. Jared Padalecki is the straight guy. But we do learn in the film that Whitney is actually still alive. And Jason has been keeping her in his underground tunnels. The reason being because she reminds him of his mum. And Whitney, I like as a character. It's interesting because Danielle Panabaker, who plays Jenna, you would assume is the final girl. She's kind of set up to be that way because she's the sympathetic one and, she doesn't have sex in the film. We never see her get stoned or even drink in the movie. She teams up with Clay in like good intentions to help him find a sister.
Doesn't mean you're going to survive if you follow all the rules.
Doesn't. Not in this film.
This is like the late 2000s. The rules are out the window.
Yeah, all bets are off. So she dies. She gets killed by Jason. Not the best kill necessarily.
It's a shocking kill.
It is, because it's, oh shit. It could go either way, at this point. Either Whitney's going to die or Jenna's going to die. Maybe even Jared Padalecki's going to die.
The film even ends with your traditional, fake out Jason death might not have happened. We haven't seen one of those in years.
I do quite like the parallel as well. They don't make too much of it, but there is a weird parallel, I think, between Whitney and Jason, because both obviously adore their mothers.
Yeah.
Because Whitney is there as a distraction from the fact that her mother is dying of cancer. And she's the caretaker, basically, because Jared Padalecki, long time ago, has sodded off and left them sort of to it. So she's there, she's with her boyfriend, remember Whitney's in the prologue bit, camping just as like a way of a distraction. And unfortunately, we learn that Whitney's mum has since passed away. The time that it's Whitney's been held captured by Jason, Whitney's mum has died. And obviously Jason's mum is dead as well. So there is like a weird, I don't know, like almost a connection that they kind of share in that sense. And Whitney is a little bit more of an Amy Steele character from part 2 in that, she even though she's captured, I think she probably uses psychology a lot to subdue Jason.
Yeah, it's constantly trying to escape. She
is always trying to escape.
We know she escapes in the film at one point and is captured again, but in the extended edition, you see just how close she got to actually getting away.
Yeah.
So, yeah, massively underrated film, this one. This would actually go, in my personal ranking, quite high.
This would be high for me.
Because I actively rewatch this one because I enjoy it. The behind the scenes were really fun. But I think we have to talk about the lawsuit that basically came out because of this film.
Mm-hmm.
This film, obviously Victor Miller wrote the original film and got paid every time his characters were used. He got really annoyed over this film because they pitched it to him as, it's not a remake, it's just a sequel. We're doing a sequel to the original one. Because he doesn't own the sequel rights. Mm-hmm. If it's a sequel, then he got to be paid less than if it was a remake. Because if they're remaking the original film, they would have to pay him a lot more.
Yes.
And so a lot of his story is condensed down to the very beginning of the film.
Mm-hmm.
But the film was then marketed as a remake/reboot.
Yeah.
So he got really annoyed and he felt really disrespected. And that is why we've not had... The court case ended last year.
Yeah.
And that's why we didn't get any Friday the 13th films since. It's because he may have written the original story. He created Voorhees, Camp Crystal Lake, Jason.
Mm-hmm.
But Sean Cunningham owns the name Friday the 13th, Hockey Mask Jason, Adult Jason, and anything that happens in the sequels.
Yeah.
So it got messy and it got really, really complicated.
Yeah.
And that is how it has ended. It's going to be years before we get a film. We're getting a TV series called Crystal Lake.
Yeah.
Because apparently the TV rights are way easier, which is Victor Miller, the showrunner from Hannibal's doing it. And apparently they can access anything. The movie rights are just far too complicated. And it came about because I think this film was like the final straw and he felt really offended. Like it was like a personal attack on him that they didn't want to pay him what he was owed for creating these characters. and told him it was just a sequel when in fact it is a full-blown reboot. And I generally think if it wasn't for the lawsuit, we would have got sequels to this film.
Yeah.
Because as much as the reception might have been, it's okay. It made money.
Yeah. To return to a point you made earlier, you said that this is a very kind of polished film, or there's a polish to the movie. I absolutely agree with you. I think this film is shot really well. I like the acting. I like this film.
I've seen weird complaints though. It looks and feels too much like a Texas Chainsaw because of the cinematographer. It's like, is that a bad thing though?
That's a point some people have made.
I've seen someone compare that the most recent Texas Chainsaw Massacre feels more like a Friday the 13th film.
And generally, from what I can gather, watching other like horror reviewers, YouTubers talk about this film, they say it's fine. But the one point that keeps cropping up time and time again is like it just doesn't have the feel of a Friday the 13th
They want it to feel cheap.
Yeah.
I can get the criticisms. They just don't bother me. They don't bother me at all.
Right. Here's the thing about it is like it's very clear as soon as this film.
Take Freddy away because he's not needed here
anymore. Not needed anymore.
He's not part of this conversation.
Get out of here, Freddy. It's very clear when this film starts. Like we are not in the 80s. Anymore.
They did initially pitch to do it that way, but the studio was like, no, modern day.
Yeah.
And to be fair, the story works exactly the same.
It does, but it's abundantly clear. Everything from the cinematography to
the
fashion to the acting style, it's very clear. Like we're in a very contemporary, modern film here that's taking an old, like tried formula, but it does feel like it's a modern film. And I also understand like my own kind of preference in films. I do understand that the way a film looks and feels can add to your enjoyment of it. And I just want to briefly talk about like another example here, Scream. I'm not a huge fan of Scream 4. It's probably my least favourite. And I think one of the reasons for that is
Scream 4 is great.
One of the weakest killers aside, it's very clear.
Weaker than one of the killers in Scream 5.
It's very clear when you watch Scream 4 that we're not in the 90s anymore. And I love the original Scream. I love Scream 2. I love Scream 3, even though I think Scream 3 was 2000, technically. I think, or like very late 90s. But those three films, part of their charm is they are, they're 90s films. Like the fashion and the music and like the way it was shot and the acting style and like the references. And that adds to the continuous enjoyment of watching the films for me. But by the time we get to Scream 4, again, it feels like it's a modern film. And part of the charm is kind of, I don't know, it's gone. Yeah, rightly or wrongly, and like the overall feel of a movie can add to your enjoyment of something.
I do get your point there, but also at the same time, that's my problem with the Friday the 13th fan base as a whole. When you do think, because realistically, this film doesn't do anything that the other films don't do.
Yeah.
Yeah, it gets condemned for not being different. Well, it's been different.
It's been different.
And
we went to fucking space with Jason.
Yeah. We're 12 films in. They need to try and modernise it. I think if it was made today, because 80s have been very big, and I feel like we've now mastered doing the 80s nostalgia, we could do a Friday the 13th set in the 80s really well.
Yeah.
But we have to let these franchises move on.
You have to, yeah. Like, everything...
It's like, again, good Scream. Neve Campbell not being in the next one is probably overall a good thing because it severs the ties with a character.
Yeah.
And it creates freedom to do other things. I think one of the biggest strengths of Friday the 13th is they've never had a singular, apart from Tommy over a few films, but they've never been tied to him. There's never been a character they absolutely have to have in every film fighting Jason. Yeah. And it's given him freedom to go to space and anything because
I agree.
He's not tied down.
You have to let a franchise evolve. Like everything I've just said aside, this film ranks so high for me. Yeah. I really like 2009.
Because it's also like, compare Friday the 13th Part 1 and 2 to Part 6.
Yeah.
Two of them, very clearly early 80s films. I'd say by the mid-80s, films have changed entirely, completely
massively.
Almost changing genre.
Yeah.
It feels like, when people say, it doesn't feel like Friday the 13th, Jason Lives feels entirely different to Friday the 13th, 1, 2, 3, and 4.
Yes.
And even 5. And people hold that film to higher regard. This film, obviously very modern. Why is it condemned for doing kind of similar to what other films have done in the past?
The thing is like, now, having seen a few more, reviews and listened to a few more reviews, people, I think now are kind of changing their tune on this film. Because where it was once maybe condemned, now people are like, actually, it's pretty decent.
Yeah.
It's actually a pretty
I go as
good
far as
film.
say it's good.
It is a really good film. This, like, I don't, not to get into rankings, but this would easily be in my, like, top 5, maybe even top 4 Friday films.
I was stuck between when I was getting you that, Jason, I had a choice between him, Part 3, and Part 2. One of the hardest decisions I've made in a very long time.
Yeah, exactly.
Part of it came down to, I was like, well, we've already made the video on Part 2 and 3. Might as well get the one from 9.
And I love Derek Mears as Jason.
Yeah, I would love for him to get to play the role again. He's I feel like he's equally as passionate about the role as Kane Hodder is.
Yeah, I think, he's, like, the guy has an encyclopedic knowledge about the franchise. Because really sweetly, Derek Mears said that when he was younger, he suffered from alopecia, which is obviously the condition that, you know, your hair falls out. So from a young kid, he always felt like the outcast. He felt like the odd one out, and maybe he was bullied at school. I don't know. But he said that when he was younger, and Friday the 13th was, you know, like a big franchise, he connected with Jason. Just as a film fan, as a moviegoer, he connected with Jason in that way. He felt like the outcast. He knew what it was like. So I feel like for him, it was a very special moment from, you know, to be cast and to don the mask and everything.
Like I said, Brucey, I've watched so many interviews of him just talking about that role. And if he ever does a convention in the UK, I will happily go and meet him because I think he brings so much to it. Even like the style, like the clothes style, I really like.
It's really cool. Also, he also wears a sack in the opening prologue. Because there is a scene in 2009 that hasn't yet been done in another film where him finding the mask is actually, you know, like a special moment.
Yeah, as much as I love Free and I rate Free so high, that he just comes out in the mask, and I think
he
in
just
that
takes
moment
it from Shelley.
They never thought that the mask was going to continue on.
Yeah, they didn't know, but
we finally got to see a moment of him picking up the mask.
And I think it's the first moment where we hear the you know, that is like, I appreciate that. I thought that was done very well.
Way better than what in, say, Halloween 2007. As much as I do enjoy that film, sorry, when we first hear it's when he's a kid coming out of like the principal's office after killing about to go kill a bully. It's like, that feels like that should have been safer when he first put the mask on the first year of that film. That was the perfect. I think we don't hear it that often, Fred. No. We don't hear a lot of Harry Manfred use. It is in there, but to hear the when he's holding the mask, that's just perfect. That's a perfect moment for that, and I think he loves especially that he got to be the Jason in that moment.
I think so as well. I mean, from what I can gather, most criticisms of this film, it just seems to be like, I don't know, it just doesn't feel like a Friday film. It doesn't have the cheapness of a Friday film. That seems to be people's biggest grievances, because when you
this wasn't an expensive movie. I feel like as we've gotten up, especially today, because when you think like I'll compare it to Halloween again, the most recent Halloween films do not have a massive budget, but they look like big blockbuster films. I think just especially from like the 2010s, we'll say from like 2008 onwards, we've gotten really good at making cheap films look more expensive. And I think this was kind of like in that first wave of that, because again, the budget wasn't massive on this.
It wasn't. And I mean,
I think it had less of a budget than Freddy vs. Jason did.
I think maybe, I don't know, do you think it's also like, obviously we get some brutal kills throughout the whole franchise, but you know, in this film, we see a girl set on fire in a sleeping bag. We see a guy caught in a bear trap, and we see the skin being stretched and pulled, like you see muscle. Like we
you think
see
it was too brutal?
I was going to ask you, do you think that was the reason why a lot of people turned away from it? Because again, it doesn't have like the schlocky cheesiness of the other kills in the other franchises. I think it could play into it.
I think a big part of it is because it was new. It's not the main continuity. That's why people turned away from it. And then it's the same. You see it all the time. Like, I can guarantee in 10 years' time, people are going to look back at Halloween Ends and go, you know, that was actually really good.
Yeah.
And it really bothers me.
Do you think, like, is this a franchise?
It only doesn't affect box office.
Is this a franchise that just can't win? No, like, no matter what film it churns out, even a good film like 2009, you're always going to get people that are like,
think even
just
Jason
not the same,
Lives,
is it?
Which is highly regarded as one of the best in the franchise, at the time did not do well.
No, and even now it's probably still a bit divisive.
And like where it is and what it does, because it changed everything. 2009 it's a refund. It's constantly on Netflix, so
2009 is
give it a chance. I think if you've not watched the Friday the 13th film, you could jump into this film. In fact, that could be your starting. That could be your starting point.
I agree. Like this, as I say, it's within my top 5 of all the films. And even though, again, it's like, if I'm going to choose to watch a Friday the 13th movie, I'd probably say like this would be one of them I would select to watch. It doesn't have the coziness of the earlier films, but I mean, nothing can and nothing will. We're in a different decade. Like
even now, if it came out today, it wouldn't be the same as this was.
It wouldn't be the same. Maybe that will work in its favour. You know, the further more time goes by away from 2009, people will look a bit more fondly on it.
I'm going to say 8 to 10 years before we get a Friday the 13th movie.
Yeah.
Maybe if Crystal Lake does really well, it might spur them enough to get back to the table and actually make a deal.
Yeah.
To make a new movie. Because it's been so long, the only thing they could do is either do a direct sequel to this one, or a full-on remake.
Yeah.
It's the only way it's going to work.
Way. Because we've done it for the other Friday videos that we've done.
It's officially longer than Prometheus's video now.
Your ranking of these 4.
Jason Goes to Hell. Jason X. Freddy Vs Jason, 2009.
Okay. Jason X.
It's cruel.
Freddy vs. Jason.
Wait, what? No.
Jason Goes to Hell.
No.
And then 2009.
No.
Yeah. I've been thinking about it. And honestly, I can just... Jason Goes to Hell, I can't really defend it. It's not...
Our subscriber count just went to 0.
Yeah.
We just lost everybody.
It's not a great film. I'm not saying that. But I can see myself watching that a bit more than returning to Freddy vs. Jason. And again, maybe that's down to the fact I'm not a huge fan of Nightmare on Elm Street, and Jason X just doesn't do it for me.
I'll say fair enough. We'll discuss this more later.
We will, but that's like, because we've ended every other video with a ranking, like we had to do it. This has been hard. This was hard. Yeah. All I knew was 2009 was top.
Yeah. So this won't be the last time we touch on Friday the 13th. We just finally finished this kind of series of splitting them into story arcs.
Yeah.
We'll be covering Crystal Lake. We might even do a ranking, because we've ranked them in groups of 4, but we've not done an overall ranking. That's going to be hard. That would take a lot of
That really will.
thought.
Oh, yeah. We're doing more Friday content.
Yeah,
for sure.
Absolutely.
We're going to revisit these films.
We're going to finish the Chucky ones next, because we only got one more video to go on that. At some point, we will look in Nightmare on Elm Street, because
we will. We have to. We've already now dipped our toe into it. So.
I'm happy. I'm really happy that we finally finished the one, because I do enjoy a lot of the ones in this segment. Like this era of time, this weird one, and arguably it's like what really came from the New Line era.
Yeah,
is a lot of divisiveness and a lot of difference and a lot of infighting.
Yeah,
but some extremely memorable parts of the franchise.
You know, apparently very interesting films to talk about as well.
Yeah, because we've been going for an hour and a half now.
We should stop.
We should stop, and we're going to stop. So thanks a lot, guys. We hope you've enjoyed. I hope the whole aim of this is to try and pique some interest into checking these films out, and honestly, now is probably a better time than any.
Yeah.
Because for the first time in 14 years, we're getting new Friday the 13th content this year.
Yeah. And always just remember, your opinion is never wrong. And it's fun to debate.
Yeah.
You know, and that's kind of the beauty of these films. It's like you love them or hate them, but they're always going to be fun to talk about and analyse and rank. Friday the 13th, we're officially over and out. For a while.
We're over and out for a little while. So you got no more notes on these?
Oh, I don't think so. Like a lot of note taking the last week or so. No, I think that's it.
Yeah,
I think that's
cool.
it. I'm happy with that.
If you stuck with us this far, thanks very much, guys. Again, comment below what your favourite out of these particular 4 are.
Yeah.
Where do you rank the 2009 one? Have you watched it recently?
Yeah.
And but again, if your opinion differs from us, be nice.
Please be nice.
Please be nice.
We
know liking it as much as we do 2009 especially is a controversial opinion.
Well, look, again,
film's subjective.
Film is subjective. Your opinion can't be wrong. Everyone has their own preferences.
I mean, your Jason Goes to Hell one might be wrong, but
I feel like I'm not going to get any kind of backup on YouTube here for that, and I do understand it. But
I appreciate a bold take.
Bold take. Our actual official ranking videos are going to be quite divisive, I think. Ours are going to be very different.
I know. I honestly don't I'd struggle because my top few change. My bottom 2 are usually pretty solid, but my top 3 especially kind of flip-flop a lot. So I feel like as soon as I put the video out, I'd want to do another one to correct it because I'll change my mind again.
Yeah.
But I think before I do a ranking, I'd have to watch them all again.
Yeah, which we probably will end up doing at some point.
Yeah. So, yeah, thanks for stopping by, guys. We will see you next week.